But I find that because AI is making everything faster with making the changes that I want to build a project, then I'm like, well, then let's just do another one. Oh, well, we need to clean up that one too.
Welcome, Nnenna. Great to have you on the pod. Great to talk to you about AI and some of the different things we're doing. Really wanted to kick off firstly that I'm quite jealous. I saw you talking at AI Engineer. I've really enjoyed some of the videos that I've seen on YouTube from that. I'd love to go to some of the conferences. Haven't found one I can get the time or fit in yet. Even better to be speaking at one. So can you tell us a little bit about that? How did it come about? What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me here. First off, I was really shocked when I got the notification that I'll be speaking at AI Engineer Miami, but I'm really excited. I think this topic, which is about embedding code quality gates into the software development lifecycle, that's pretty much what the talk is going to be. Hopefully, I think the big thing is developers with the responsibility that they have. If they're working on a team, working for a company, or wanting to build something high quality as an open source maintainer, whatever the case, the earlier that you can embed quality checks into the software development lifecycle and to have that consistently performed through different stages, the better. And so I've collected some techniques. There's a chance that it could evolve by the time, by the time I'm on stage. But those are the principles, really, is combining AI tools, right, with the current space of AI dev tools that we have for writing code, combining those also with deterministic tools too. We have a ton of like automated or like static analysis tools that, linter checks, all of those things. We don't want to get rid of them. They have their value and their use cases. We just need to combine different sets of tools to as a part of the stack in the process. So I'll be talking a bit about that.
Cool. I think that's one of the things that I find quite exciting about this using AI to do code. Is it's waking up so many people to the fact we have linters, we have static analysis tools.
Yes.
We have tools that do static type checking, even in languages like Python that don't have static typing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost been a great side effect of AI that it's made more people aware of all these things and that they can bring them in. So apart from some of the static analysis, what other quality gates are you looking at that they can use?
One of the things is like what we have been working on at Codo, which is where I work, and I do developer advocacy things there. And Codo's an AI code quality platform. So we've been thinking about coding rules, right? And like everybody has different coding agents that they're using. And I've spoken to many engineering managers where they're just like, my whole team is using an array of coding agents, right? How do you ensure that, well, first of all, you need to be using coding rules, but how do you determine what good looks like? Right. And so that is, I think that's a really important concept, is that first of all, what good looks like as an individual and as a team, that needs to be established and then codified. And then it needs to be accessible for the coding agents and the code review agents to rely on. So those are at least two of the phases in the cycle where at least they can leverage like a centralized place for consistency of all the rules that you might want to have for programming languages or project or service specific, whatever it is. Like that is a huge thing that I think will really enable more consistency with what is developed and what is enforced for coding and then the code review.
Yeah, that's awesome. Early in my career, I used to be really quite bothered that I thought code should look a certain way and should be a certain style,
Yeah.
and had my preferences. And I remember lots of people arguing, tabs versus spaces, 2 spaces, 4 spaces. Does the curly brace go on this line or next line? One of the things I've partly hated and partly loved about things like Go and Rust and Python introducing Black and several of these other things is languages either saying that this is the way we do it in our language, like Go, the curly brace goes on the opening line. That's it. Python Black becoming widely adopted and it being very opinionated in it. And I say more grown up, more mature I get, the more I've come to appreciate just whether or not it's my style, just having everything consistent, that consistency across the code base is so powerful. And like I say, whether it's 2 versus 4 spaces, spaces versus tabs, or things that are much more useful like naming conventions, how you structure that, whether you like a functional style or OO style, that consistency has just been so useful. Both as me trying to understand the code and jump into it and working on a big team perhaps where you might not touch part of the code for 6 or 12 months. You might never touch part of the code base because the team of 40 of you is quite easy to never go into that little corner of the code base. That consistency is great. And I think it's becoming even more useful with LLMs and that we don't put it through coding agents. So I think that's a great thing to see. What are the other things that you think really matter for what good looks like then for our code bases?
Yeah, so we talked about a bit of the consistency when it comes to like what is developed, and I also think with the surge of AI from all fronts, really, we generally have to remember how important it is to remain in the driver's seat, no matter what, and just maintaining the sense of ownership over the code, and over systems and services, apps. I think that that's one of the biggest areas that will be the differentiators for engineers, really, moving forward. That sense of ownership can play out by, let's say, when you are reviewing code, whether or not you have an AI code review tool or something like that, analyzing it for you. At the end of the day, I still do believe with the progression that we've made so far, there is an opportunity to learn from what is surfaced, to have an opinion and push back if you feel like it's necessary, at that point of looking over a pull request, and thinking in a more like a systems thinker way of what really is the impact of this code change, like upstream or downstream, and what was the original intent of this. So we're looking at this full, I guess, looking at it maybe from a higher level, or looking across the whole journey of the beginning of when this even became a ticket to work on, to where we've arrived, where we're just about to move it into QA or staging environment. I think thinking about all the implications of the code is a really strong practice, like something to continue practicing and force yourself to like engage in with the tools that you use and the people that you may or may not be working with. That critical thinking is so incredibly important, because if not, it's really easy to just it's really easy for AI to not, I guess, to replace some aspect of your thinking as opposed to augment the work that you are doing.
Yeah, I totally agree because even before we had AI, I remember seeing a number of engineers that their kind of aspiration was to sit in front of their computer, take a ticket, code it up, go. Didn't want to own it before it made it into a ticket that they worked on. Didn't want to own it afterwards. I couldn't do that because personally I'm too curious. I want to know why are we doing this? How does it help move the needle? How does it make a difference to what the organization is trying to do? But I think if your ownership is that small area, you are at risk of AI or someone else taking your job. Or if you take ownership of the bigger area, you've got an understanding of how it fits into the goals of the organization. You can maybe push back and say, actually, do we want to do this at all? Or should we be doing something different? Is this the right thing to build, or should we build that thing over there? Because, I don't know, I talked to this team over here and they're doing something. So actually, with what they're doing, if we pushed it back a week, we could incorporate what they're doing. And I talked to sales and marketing and they've got a different priority. So that to me is software engineering, thinking about the bigger picture and how it drives the goals of the whole organization, not just, I've got a ticket that says implement a function to calculate X. I'll go and write the code. And again, even if you don't want to get involved in, say, sales and marketing, I kind of like getting in the sales side because that drives the business objectives. So make sure we get make sure we get paid at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you don't want that, you can still think about the other end of like where we're going to deploy it, how we're going to support it, how does it get to the customers, how do we release it, how do we manage all, and you can think about the wider business implications across all of that. I'm going to circle back from all of that. You mentioned that people who talk to having a layer of different coding agents, and I think this is a similar aspect of that. And I like the idea of developers having freedom and being able to use whatever tools they want. So I've long advocated that test-driven development is something that you can individually choose to do. Like whether or not I do TDD in my code shouldn't affect whether or not you do it in your code, because end of the day, we're going to merge the code and, all you see is a PR. You don't see whether I got the test first or last or actually properly TDD. Whether or not you go, there's no test, that's a red flag, I could get on board. But when somebody got the test shouldn't matter to the rest of your team, as long as you're producing the quality that the team finds acceptable. And in a way, I feel the same way about IDEs. We should be able to have the choice. And LLMs and coding agents, to me, again, are another tool of that. But I do see that there are, I think Sonar had a survey the other day saying that the average person is using 4 different agents. Then there's
Wow.
whole ways of using different, some people are using the web interfaces, some people are using the agents. Some companies obviously are banning certain agents because they don't want their code and intellectual property going out to it. So there's kind of ending up with this shadow IT problem coming to shadow AI problem. What are your thoughts on how we balance that out? How do we achieve giving everyone the best tools and the tools that they're most happy with versus finding a balance and protecting the intellectual property and maybe sharing some learnings across the team and being able to leverage some of the knowledge that we've got?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges of this is depending on where you work, depending on your environment, this what you have access to could be just a top down mandate, and also just because it's like default to the rest of the infrastructure that you have. If you're like a Microsoft shop, then maybe those are the exact tools you're going to get access to, and like GitHub Copilot, and that's it. Um, so that's part of what makes this question difficult to answer. It's that it's not always we won't always have a choice um, in what we have access to. But what you did mention about there's this an enablement side of things. Well, first of all, the tools are I think a lot of these teams like GitHub Copilot, like CLI, I'm watching them on social media and they are becoming a lot more aggressive with updating and improving, expanding features that they want to make available to developers. So that is promising. I think many of these teams across these different coding agents are going to continue doing that. So so that gives me hope. On the other side, there's an enablement factor that I think, just like a good old fashioned show and tell, or a show don't tell, whatever you want to call it, of being able to experiment or show what has been valuable to you about different workflows or different tools that you're using, or like agent skills, whatever it is, being able to get on calls and to show people and have this learning culture and experimentation culture can maybe help people with different learning styles discover ways of using the tools that they do have access to be and feel productive, within those constraints that could be the case.
Yeah, I like that. I like that approach. One of the things I find interesting about it, though, is I'm running my own business, so I've got complete freedom. I can play
Yeah.
with any of them that I can get my hands on. So I try a bunch of them, and it does mean that a lot of what I do, I try and be fairly agent or platform agnostic, so I can take the ideas and apply them to different. And from that point of view, because I've not invested in, I'm going to build a Claude plugin, or I'm going to build something that's very specific for GitHub Copilot, I found a lot of my techniques I can take and use in Copilot or Claude or AMP or Kilo, and I don't notice much difference. At the end of the day, I can
Really?
go through Neil. I think all the ones I just mentioned, I can configure or come with like Opus 4.6, for example. So it's the same
Hmm.
model. What's really different? The difference then is the tools it's providing, which again, they're going to have the ability to run bash and edit a file. So they're fairly similar, or the system prompt that's gone into them. And I found a lot of my techniques work across all of those. Do you find much difference between them when you're using them?
For models, yes, and that's pretty much it. Like, I know I can expect different personalities output based on whether I'm using Opus or what is it, 5.4 for GPT.
Mm-hmm.
That's where like I have the biggest like preferences for what I need to do and why. Other than that, the fact that there's like usually a TUI, is usually some kind of GUI. I mean, the same actions need to be performed. I'm trying to build something, so there hasn't been much of a difference there. And if I have set up certain workflows or skills in maybe Claude Code, and I really like it, I'm probably just going to port it over to Codex and anywhere else that I want to use it. And it's the principle around that particular workflow and the value it has for me for code quality or automating like updating docs that I find to be very valuable at a high level. And yeah, you just plug it in. So that's, we might have similar approaches. I didn't even realize it until until you made me think about this.
Yeah, I've been doing a bit of training with people, and I've spoken to a couple of different companies recently. And there's a lot of people want to get very specific on you must know, Claude inside out or Copilot inside out, and train them on these specific features. And I find that a little bit odd, thinking, well, why? The fundamental change in the approach you work through is using an LLM. It's using these models and understanding how they work, understanding how to provide the right context, how to manage the context window, how to prompt them, which really is part of context. Whether or not you know how to customize the slash commands, or you know where a skill goes in Claude versus a skill in AMP or Copilot, it seems a little bit missing the point. You're looking at like kind of finer details without thinking, well, what's the workflow? How do I manage that? How do I teach people to review this code and think about the code quality and put the guardrails in? And as you say, tell the agent to use the static analysis tools and provide that, that back pressure, if you will, and the feedback loops, which is, I think, far better place to invest your time.
And now that you're saying that, I'm wondering if people have like a repo that contains all of that is separate from whatever tools they're actually using, to continue refining it over time, or just adding to it, like behavior, driven development, or some of the other concepts, software methodologies, and like automated processes that could be valuable. I wonder if people are doing that.
Yeah, maybe sort of a kind of platform engineering for LLMs. And
Yeah.
yeah, that might be a good thing to do. I know, so that the few times I've done them, I'm trying to build them out in putting them in the place where most agents will read them, or
Yeah,
symlinking them so that I've got one set and all the different agents end up getting pushed into using them.
exactly. Yeah.
You recently posted something about how do you scale AI native without sacrificing quality or burning out the team.
Yeah.
I think you commented again recently on something I saw on perhaps on X about burnout and getting involved in work and finding it very easy to just keep going because I don't know. I've seen a few of you mention it's a little bit addictive as well. You kind of, oh, I've added that feature. I can add this next feature. And I've experienced that a bit myself too. How are you tackling that? How are you finding it?
My goodness. I don't know. Like, I didn't, and I wonder if this is a neurodivergent brain thing, or if this is anyone of any type of person who has who could potentially experience this. But I find that because AI is making everything faster with making the changes that I want to build a project, then I'm like, well, then let's just do another one. Oh, well, we need to clean up that one too. And I try to slow it down by just creating a GitHub issue for it and be like, okay, let me just have the agent create a GitHub issue and I will tackle that thing later. Yeah, that doesn't work. I'm just ready and excited to pull that one down and co-architect and, discuss and then get right into. I've lost sleep. uh, I've spent like 3 days in a row in a weekend, completely lost my whole weekend just sitting there at my computer, building. And it's exciting. And yeah, it's a little concerning. But I don't think that that is unique to AI, honestly. It's just a new version of this type of trait or experience. And so, in any way that one would deal with it where it's like difficult to pull away from work, I don't think it is specific to AI for how to solve for that in your own personal way. But
Yeah, I think you're right. I started learning to code because I was interested in AI. In real terms, as that was when I was 9 years old, and we're going back 40 years now and computers weren't what they were now. That meant I was on things like a ZX Spectrum and a Commodore Amiga. So realistically, I started trying to make computer games, and I had the same feeling then as I'd be
yes.
keeping the light on at night and telling my parents I'd really gone to bed, honestly. And it was the satisfaction of, oh, I've got a graphic to put on the screen. What if I could just make it move? Now what if I could just animate this little character I've got on the screen? And it was that feedback loop, that it's that dopamine, isn't it? That instant little satisfaction of seeing the next thing work, seeing the next thing move on. So I think you're right. It's not just because of AI. It's what drew a lot of us to software and that creative element of building software in the past, of seeing something work and seeing the progress you can make. And perhaps one of the things that's happened over the last 30 years professionally is software's become more complex, bigger. It's taken longer to get those dopamine hits. We've got more frameworks. I mean, now by the time you stand up a front end stack, you do, I don't know, create React, whatever it is, and it produces like megabytes of stuff and node modules, and before you've even actually got hello on the screen.
Exactly.
So I think
Yeah.
maybe we're getting away from all that boilerplate and getting back to that excitement I remember having as a kid of seeing this little badly drawn stick figure that kind of vaguely and badly animated walked across the screen and going, hey, I made that. That's something cool. And I can point to it and you can see it. And I think you're right. AI is now taking us back to some of that, as you can see that instant change. And it makes it very hard to step away, doesn't it? When you go, oh, I can now animate that. I can now make that bit move. I can add this. So there's that dopamine hit.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I'm thinking about when I was first learning how to code and what was it? It was some web development type of introductory courses, free courses online. I mean, just the fact that it was packaged as lessons, that alone was the excitement of making progression and seeing that status bar just move along of like, I've made it to the next lesson. And then the dopamine from the UI, knowing that one change in that I make in my IDE can then be seen in my web browser locally. That was like, and so that's part of what attracted me to front end development, in comparison to back end. Back end was just like, oh man, like you just it feels like you got to hope and pray that the thing works the way you intended it to beyond the local databases that you can work where you can verify if something worked or not. But that was what drew me in, and luckily there were many aspects of software development in general that kept me. But that can draw someone in, and I think that that's okay. I think that there's actually signals that you can take from that, or you can learn about what does get you excited and what you want to do more of. But the burnout that's also not, that's difficult to tackle in general.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that was the great thing about front end. As I kind of started my career, a lot of work was being done in C and C++. So you'd spend a long time writing a bunch of code, fighting the compiler, and then you'd get it printed some text on the screen, and you're like, it's not very exciting.
Yeah.
Well, when the web came up and people had, I mean, I've I was back there in HTML1. We had the marquee tag and something scrolled across the web page. It was motion. It's exciting. Some
Yeah,
graphics.
yeah, it's incredible.
Cool. So when you're dealing with AI, what does your workflow look like?
Hmm. Um, well, first, well, for anything related to coding or a project that I'm working right now on a fleet of developer experience agents, and I want it to be something that I can interact with like an agent in my terminal. I need an idea first
Mm-hmm.
before I need an idea, and then I want to begin discussing that idea or brainstorming to get my thoughts out. And I use Whisper Flow, and which has been great for just speaking instead of trying to type. Just like a full brain dump of an idea, and strategize actually with ChatGPT because it's really great at just working through some of those kinks. And from there, that's when I'll move to, if I verified an idea is like something worth building and going to be useful to me, then that's when I move to Codex or any type of AI coding agent and discuss more as like a co-architect. I think that is really important to like surface any assumptions and like risks, and really getting more into the breaking down the idea into these consumable parts or smaller pieces that could almost be like a easily packaged into a pull request, like a feature or a refactor, or a fix, a bug fix or something. So taking an idea, breaking it down, co-architecting, deciding how I want to build something and why, constantly asking those questions, and then all of that gets pulled into. Then I tell the agent to create an Epic and GitHub issues. So it's just going to talk directly to the GitHub API through the CLI, and all of that is managed in GitHub for a project that I have, and I know that people are saying that um, I guess project management tools or systems that keep track of work is dead. That is a thing that I'm hearing, and it's just like I I don't know where these ideas come from. Maybe there's some validity here. I don't know, but I need to. My brain moves 1,000 miles an hour. I need to document the decisions that I've made, and to have it sit somewhere outside of my brain that is, accessible, and won't change out of nowhere for no reason.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's an interesting one, that the people saying that they're dead, we don't need them. Why would you put it into Jira, Linear, whatever, when you can just put it straight into an agent and let it go build it? And I'm like, well, I've got way more ideas than I can type the details into an agent and let it go build it.
exactly.
And some of them have to be ordered, and some of them are just things I want to record. So actually, a backlog is quite cool. So there's that aspect of it. And then I know a bunch of companies who are working on how do we build these software factories. So all you're going to do is you're going to sit in front of your Jira, Linear, whatever. You're going to light out all your requirements, your epics, and whatever, and you can say to an agent, go do it. And the agent's just going to keep pinging this backlog in Jira, grabbing any tickets are there. So your job as a software engineer then becomes light tickets, put them into the system. So that's far from dead. They're trying to automate these software factories from that. Then there's the other aspect of it that, again, I'm kind of free to do what I want. So one of the things I'm trying to figure out now is how do I get these ideas down? So if I'm wandering around on my phone, how do I whisper flow or whatever, record my idea and then put it into some queue somewhere where I can leave an agent
Hmm.
learning that will pick up that thing and go and do it. And I haven't quite figured out what that is. Maybe I should be looking at GitHub issues. Maybe that's the answer: is push them all to GitHub issues, have an agent monitoring that. So I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? People saying it's dead, and then I can see a lot of use cases for it, and I see people trying to automate this.
Yeah, yeah. There's like a spectrum, a very um, a bit wide spectrum, I guess. I can't imagine not documenting this. I'm in fear of losing the idea with just life and adulting, and it's just so easy to forget. Um, because I'm pretty sure I have decent ideas. I want to believe I do. Or I want to be able to go back to the idea and be like, actually, that's not going to be useful to me anymore, I can, throw that one in the bin. But yeah, there's so much to learn and to think deeply about when it's logged. So I think that's maybe impressive and concerning if all you need is your brain and not tools.
Yeah, the other aspect I wanted to pick up on there that you mentioned is, again, I speak to a lot of software engineers who say, well, fine, I can use AI and it can write me a function, but that's it. And I've approached it from the other point of view, and it sounds like you have a bit that, we all hate writing requirements. We're thinking through what should the architecture be and why, and thinking through is always sometimes hard to do on your own. It helps to kind of have somebody else to talk to, somebody else to bounce ideas off. That's not always possible, particularly when we're asynchronous. So I find AI is really good for that. Even if it hallucinates, even if it's wrong sometimes, it's a bit like the rubber duck. You don't need the rubber duck to be intelligent. You just need to talk to it and have it listen, so to speak, while you get your ideas out there and restructure them. So it's really interesting to hear that you're using it for ideation and iterating through those ideas.
Absolutely, because there's so much, since you're not bugging a human being to extract knowledge from. It's an endless stream of thoughts that you can uh, give to AI and learn in the process. Like, there are some aspects of system design and software architecture that I feel like there's so much more I need to learn and get experience with, despite having been a developer for several years or a decade. There's so much more, and I don't think that's nearly enough time to. And so, through building projects and asking AI to ask me about the different implementation options that we have and the trade-offs of using just a log or of JSON files versus SQLite as a lightweight database, I can then learn about the trade-offs. I can then learn about the use cases for different tools or implementation. And that brings me a lot of joy and a lot more confidence for my understanding of software engineering and architecture, system design in general.
Yeah, and that asking questions is underrated as well.
Mm-hmm.
I find it so useful to, as you say, that brain dump, my random bunch of thoughts is, I want to build something that's going to do X, Y, Z. Ask me some questions about it to find out what I've missed. And again, some of the questions might be junk and rubbish, but it's as a way of thinking and iterating on those ideas, it's so useful. And at the end of it, you say, right, take all these things we talked and produce me
Exactly.
a set of requirements. I quite like using the ears format. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really matter what format, but it's like, go and give me a set of requirements. And then this nice requirement document comes out at the end. And it's like, that would have taken me a long time to structure that and organize that. And it's
Yes.
really boring work trying to figure out all that. It's captured all the points. It's made me think through it. And I've done the hard bit of the thinking. Now someone else has done the boring bit of lining it all up. So,
Right. That's one thing also that I'm really happy about is that I've chosen not to write my own pull requests. The summary and like what are the changes and what's like the acceptance criteria, the checklist. Oh my goodness. It is so nice to know that I've already done the hard part of this work of thinking through the problems and iterating and fixing. And now we can just have AI to summarize all of that when I open a PR. Seriously. And remember when we used to do that by hand, or the commit messages? What is, it's just like, how do I perfectly summarize what I just did? But that's also in line with what our standards are for writing commit messages. It just feels like unnecessary pressure sometimes, or at least that's how it felt in the past.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, what does Codo do?
Yeah, good question. So Codo is an AI code quality and governance platform. And one of the things that's most important, or I guess one of the ways in which we're exercising this code quality is through a code review experience, a tool feature that we have. And I think like we've seen and we know that AI code is being generated, and there's only more of it that is going to be generated. And while that is amazing, huge breakthrough in our experiences, there's so much that I'm also concerned about, and that we are concerned about when it comes to the quality. When you're moving so fast, how can you ensure that quality remains something, or is something that won't slow you down? Like, you can still get those productivity gains from the times that we're in with AI. And so that's part of what Codo is here to solve. And it's a tool that can be integrated into Git providers. Like, as soon as you open up a pull request, it starts analyzing the whole uh, PR, and we're also and then it gives you all these actionable feedback and like agent prompts to fix what are the actual issues that that have been surfaced, and then how can I help you to go and fix that with your coding agent so that you can move this code along and get it to a merge ready state. But yeah, that's the very long summary of what it does.
So the immediate thing that jumps out for me there is when we talk about code review. I think it was 2 days ago, Anthropic announced that Claude Code has this code review feature, and they said it's going to cost $15 to $25 per PR to review it. That immediately jumped out to me as quite a high price and quite expensive. And okay, so maybe some Silicon Valley companies might not notice that, might view that as low cost. And I totally get on board with the argument that $15, $25, if it stops a production incident, for a lot of companies, it's a good return. I'm also still aware that I've worked in a lot of enterprise companies well away from Silicon Valley, where I've had to fight long and hard to get $20 a month in tooling budget per developer, where cash is tight and that's not necessarily something flexible. So the idea of then spending $20 per PR is quite... I can see a lot of managers struggling to get that budget over the line. And I've seen a lot of comments from people saying that Codo is better and infinitely cheaper compared to that. So how are you guys feeling as you see kind of Claude Code encroaching on that? And, how do you think it compares from... I think you've tried it from what...
Yeah, yeah. As soon as they launched or released, I think it was a Monday, I was just like, somebody get me access to this tool because I need to know what is the thing that is worth, $15 to $25 per review. It is just the way that it was, the message of it was just like, of course, everybody had such a strong reaction. So I was like, well, maybe let's see if the experience and the quality of this is worth it. And I took it for a spin, and then like that's when it it became a little concerning that for I shared this on Twitter that for 150 lines of code, not 150,000, 150 lines of code, it took what 33 minutes for
Wow.
Claude Code Review to finish, and then we were charged, $20 for it. Yeah, that was the average cost between two pull requests. So that was like difficult to take in. And I was just like, okay, I think I just need to turn this tool off at this point. And the review also, I noticed that it suppressed so many issues that it found, and there was no visibility into what all those issues were. And I was like, wait, but I actually want to have a say in
Yeah.
how much an issue that was found matters or not. So that was interesting. I'm sure there are going to be so many more updates that come out for them with this product. They're getting the feedback. They're going to do something. It's Anthropic. This is what they do. But I know it's very obvious to me that the focus is for the enterprise. It's not for the everyday developer, and I think that there's a lot more optimization and like R&D, hardcore R&D that they need to do for improving their algorithms, improving their agentic AI system under the hood to optimize for more of the things like precision and recall, and the cost efficiency. Like these are all the things that they actually need to work on addressing if they, want to make this more appealing to the more of the masses. And those are the things that at Codo, like our research and development team spent so much and continue to iterate and improve on. No sleep. And that's what led us to release with our pre-existing code review benchmark, measuring Claude code review on that and finding out that Codo was in fact a better performing for realistic real world PRs with higher precision, higher recall. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. And the obvious one to compare Claude Code's code review to is just using Claude Code and saying, go and review this code for me. And I don't think I've ever had it come close to taking 130 minutes on some bigger changes than that. I think I've given it a whole repo of 4,000 or 5,000 lines of code and had it be quicker than that and give me
Right.
feedback.
Exactly. Yeah, I was like, I would actually rather use the, what was it, /review? Or there's a couple of them.
I've just literally given it straight prompts. Just go and review this
review
code.
it. Yeah. So now I know you're not manually typing / and then doing like the search and like the hints or the options to find which one is the exact code review command. Is that just me? What?
Perhaps. But it's, again, I'm using so many different agents that a lot of them, I'm either typing out the short prompt myself because I'm working to the workflow, or I have a bunch of my prompts saved. Because a lot of my prompts are read the spec document, write the tests, then implement it, record any learnings you've got into this file, stop when you've completed the next task. So I've almost got a manual version of the Ralph loop, and going through a plan. Here's a bunch of tasks. Go and read the spec, read this thing. I find out I'm going through a lot of those very much, and I'm putting my time not in so much into writing prompts, but into writing the ticket. Or I don't tend to use ticket system. A lot of my markdown files that are in the repo, so I can go back and say, well, actually, I can reproduce this software because I've got, there were 4 prompts: read the spec, build it, or build the test, build it, code review it, and I've just got those prompts that I'm either putting into a very simple loop or I'm literally just pasting them in. And all the hard work is in the requirements document that I'm giving it, which then is saved in the repo, so I can go back on that and iterate on it. So quite a repeatable process. And it also means that because I'm trying this on different agents and I'm comparing them, I'm trying to avoid using any specific commands for each one because
I love that.
They're not necessarily going to be the same.
Right. I think that's, now I know. This is a tip that I'm getting from you now. I'm going to go back to my workspace and try to do more of what you just said. I think because I've been feeling like, okay, I've been repeating some of the same prompts. Like, this is getting annoying. I can create a skill for this, or there's got to be something else I can do to automate it. So that was a great tip. Oh, and there's also what you were saying about how people were reacting to the price of Claude Code Review. I noticed that one of the reactions, I guess, was, well, it's at least it's cheaper than an engineer reviewing code, so you're getting really high value for the cost when you think about it that way. That was a message I saw everywhere, and I thought deeply about that, and I was like, if I let my if I just accept that for what it is and not think any further and just be like, oh, makes sense. Like, I think there's so many implications with that kind of statement. Are you in fact saying that if you're comparing the cost and saying it's cheaper, are you saying that you don't want to allocate any engineering time or to reviewing code? Because it almost sounds like, okay, so then the goal for you is to have AI replace engineers. If not, you will be paying for whatever code review tool you use, if that's Claude Code Review, and the engineer's time for reviewing what AI has generated and making a call as, the owner of this work. That's the cost. It's like a sum, not one or the other, unless your goal is to replace. So just be clear. Just be clear about that.
Yeah, and I think it's also raises questions on the other side about what is your workflow. If you're having AI write the code, why are you having AI review it?
Mm-hmm.
And why doesn't AI just get it right in the first place? It's kind of the obvious follow-up to that is if AI is so clever, why can't it just get the code right in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
But AI is not really that clever. It's amazing what it can achieve, but there's nothing intelligent. It's a very big bunch of matrix multiplication at the end of the day. It can still be incredibly powerful and incredibly useful for that. And I don't think replacement works anyway, because let's say you get rid of all software engineers and you're going to tell AI in English or whatever your natural language is how to build software. I don't know about you, but I found natural languages incredibly ambiguous. I've been married to my wife for, she edits this, so I'm going to be in trouble, like 25 years now. And we can still misunderstand each other. We know each other really well. It's still very easy to misunderstand each other on very simple things. And I was talking to somebody else this morning, and we were saying that if you go and say to AI, build me a bridge, it could build you a great bridge, but you haven't been clear. Do you want a pontoon bridge? Do you want a bridge that's high enough for ships to go underneath? Do you want a bridge that can lift to allow even taller ships to go underneath? Is it a rail bridge, a footbridge, or a car bridge, or, is it going to take cars or is it going to take trucks?
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch of details that you need to put in there. And if you just say, go and build me a bridge, which, a lot of these short prompts are going, hey, I gave it a 1-sentence description and it built me this SaaS platform. Yeah, it can do something if you're not bothered quite what you want. You just want the bridge. But if you had very particular requirements, you need to be more precise and less ambiguous about it. And once you start trying to be precise and getting those descriptions right, I think you're back to being a software engineer. You're just trying to create that unambiguous spec in a natural language, which is really hard, instead of trying to create it in a language which is very small and well defined. So I think, at best, software engineering just becomes we're programming in a different language. And I think we'll find that we have the same limitations, so it's ambiguous. And again, I point to mathematicians and physicists.
Yes.
They don't go describing the theory of, string theory or, I'm going to suck at maths now, but, all those, they use mathematical notation because it's precise and unambiguous. They don't sit and write all that theory out in plain English because it would be too long-winded and ambiguous and difficult to follow. So I think we're still going to have some form of programming, coding, however you want to describe it, is trying to be that an ambiguous thing.
I agree, and I also think that there are going to be some very unique solutions that come from this type of problem. I've been looking into, I think, like some startups or different tools popping up around deterministic architectures for verified AI, as opposed to in order to challenge or to solve for the issues that we're seeing with AI assisted development and the ambiguity of it. It's like, okay, well, how about we get the way software is supposed to be written, or where it's intended to be written, the right way as soon as possible, and it's like some math proofs languages where it either actually works or it doesn't. I don't know any details beyond that. I have to do a lot more of my homework, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of solutions pop up for this. But yes.
Yeah, there are certain areas of software where we get in safety critical systems that have long used formal methods that can define a solution and verify its correctness.
Mm-hmm.
They take a lot of work to produce.
Mm.
And I briefly looked at formal methods when I was at university and went, I don't ever want to do that. I don't want to touch that. That's no fun. It's really hard work as far as I was concerned. And it took way longer to actually get to the point where you could see something actually working.
Mm-hmm.
So I got no fun out of it. And I think it's also incredibly expensive. So when you're doing a safety critical system, when you put out, the value of a life is X many tens of billions, so you're prepared to invest in it. People will do it. But if we're building an e-commerce shop or something, people aren't going to invest that level of effort into it.
Right, that's true. So, yeah.
I'm conscious of the time, so one more question, if you.
I know.
If you're good for that.
Yeah.
We talked about code review, and one of the things I picked up on there, and that I liked and thought they failed on is I like the fact that they said in their press release and their blog post that they've been using it for months. So they've been dog fooding it. So I really like that. And I think that every company should dog food their own products. At
Yes.
the same time, Amazon have been in the press a lot recently with people at Amazon and AWS complaining that they've been made to use Kilo and complaining about that. But I kind of take Amazon's side. I think it's really good that they're dog fooding the product. I think, like I say, I think everybody should be dog fooding their own product because particularly something like Kilo at Amazon and Code and Code Review at Anthropic, their users are software engineers. Their target market is software engineers. They have, in the case of Amazon, thousands of software engineers. If they can't build a product that's good enough for their own software engineers to use, and there's no way of them getting faster feedback than their own software engineers who can be on the internal forums going, this sucks, fix it. Here's what I tried to do. Here's a bug report, make it better. I think they'll be missing a huge opportunity if they don't do that. How do you feel about dog fooding? And is it something that you guys do?
Yes, at Codo we have a channel that's literally dedicated to, like, in our Slack channel, at any time for any part or process of using a platform. If you've got some thoughts, share it with a screenshot, maybe a video. I love the concept of it. I think it is so important, and yeah, that is a huge, like, to me, that is a huge, like, metric or bar. Is if people internally who are the ideal customer profile for somebody who'd be using the tool every day, if they are resistant to using the tool, or if they are really excited and now they're asking for more, like, features and just even giving an opinion to say where it could be improved, is data. That's something. If that's not happening, then it would be concerning to me why then I'm being sold this tool. But people who have the same type of role, same type of experience, area of expertise internally are not, then yeah, I think that would be a big yellow-ish or darker flag. So love dog fooding. Yeah.
It's something that I've had a bit of a rant about in the past. It's going back nearly 20 years ago now. I interviewed for a company to be, I guess they call it a solutions engineer. You'd call it a forward deployed engineer these days.
Yeah.
And it was for a C++ static analysis tool that was £1,500. So at the time, nearly $2,500 per seat per year. I spoke to him and said, "This sounds really cool. Can you give me a demo?" Like, we don't use it internally. I was like, "You've got 100 odd C++ developers, and you're a reseller for this tool, and you don't use it internally. Do you have any licenses?" We've got one for the sales engineer who's leaving that you'd be replacing. Yeah, count me out.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going out to customers and saying, "Use this, it's brilliant," and none of our engineers use it.
Wow.
And I said, why don't they use it? Oh, it's too expensive. We couldn't afford that. It's like, we've got 100 engineers. Yes, okay, it'd be £150,000, but you're then trying to sell it to other people. You're promoting it. You have to dog food this. So I'm quite passionate about that. I think it's absolutely key.
I'm glad we align on that. Yeah, in all of our engineering uses Codo for code review, and which is great. And I use it every day for all of the projects I build to then, like, create technical content in developer relations. And it's getting better, like, which is a huge sign of the dedication, I think, to listening to feedback internally and externally, and customers and all that. But yeah, our feedback matters too. So
yeah, and internal feedback's the fastest you're going to get, isn't it?
Exactly.
And I don't know about you, but I've had plenty of bug reports from customers that say thing didn't work, and you're like, well, what didn't work? How? What did you do? At least if it's an internal Slack channel, you can jump on a call with that person and say, okay, well, what didn't work? Show me, take me through it. And you get so much more detail than you ever will from a remote customer. Awesome. I've taken a bit more of your time than I said I would. So if anyone wants to get in contact, how's the best way to get in contact with you? And if anyone wants to learn more about Codo, how's the best way to find out more and read some of the technical content you've been producing?
So if you want to see some of the content or that I like to write, I have my own blog called nnennahacks.com. I am always on Twitter /X. Same same handle at Nnenna Hacks. I'm also always on LinkedIn. So if you look up my name, you can see me there talking all things AI and software engineering, all the nerdy things. And for Codo, Codo.ai, that's how you can, that's QODO.ai. Really, that'll give you the whole rundown of what the tool is about and all the different interfaces for interacting with Codo and getting value out of it. Yeah, a lot of more updates that will be coming from us. The team is cooking, moving fast, and I'm excited to share when appropriate to, when I can.
Awesome. And I can definitely vouch for you being very active on X. You seem to be
Yeah.
posting all times of the day. I don't know what time zone you're in, but you seem to like never sleep and be awake 24/7.
That's still trying to work on the sleep part. Um but yeah, I do have this always on thing. But there's just so much. I feel like I'm gonna miss something if I do sleep. No, but I get my beauty rest. But from sun up to sundown, I just like to read people's thoughts and then share my own.
Awesome. Well, I've enjoyed reading them. I've enjoyed your posts. So thanks very much for
Likewise.
those. And thank you for coming on the podcast, Nnenna. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of Coding Chats. If you did, please like and subscribe. And feel free to check out these other videos on a similar topic.